If you play games and you're on the internet, there is a strong chance you might have seen a photo that says the boss is when you fight him, the boss when you unlock him as a playable character. And to be fair, I can sorta see where that meme is coming from. There's been a few instances in which a boss gives you so much trouble through the course of the adventure, and once they become playable, they are fine. I mean, they can still be good, great even, but it doesn't feel like they are as powerful as they were when you were fighting against them. What I'm aiming for in this video are video game bosses that you fight at some point, eventually become playable, and single-handedly break the entire game in half. In other words, we are looking for the exact opposite of this meme. I don't think I can be any more clear than that. So why don't we look at some video game bosses that become devastating when you unlock them as playable characters? What better way to start the video than with a villain every single one of you can recognize? Ganondorf, and by default, Ganon. Yeah, I don't think I need to go too in-depth about him and his role in the Zelda games. Even if you haven't played a single title in the franchise, he's definitely someone you have seen before. Still, even though he comes from a series that is almost 40 years old, Ganondorf isn't playable in that many games. I think some of you might be thinking, oh, Ganondorf in the Super Smash Bros. Series, the first time we ever got him as a playable character. However, if you are too deep into the competitive scene, there is something you will easily agree on. Ganondorf sucks! I'm sorry, I'm not joking. I love Ganondorf. He's one of my favorite characters to play as in Smash. He's so much fun, especially when you play with friends, man! He's a blast! But if there's one thing he's consistently good at, it's at being one of the worst characters in the competitive scene. He's too slow, too vulnerable, and even though they have tried to make him different from Captain Falcon each game, he just has too many flaws. Shoutouts to Bizarro Flame for playing him in competitive Melee though, that one was really fun to watch. However, I never said that this spot was for Ganondorf in Smash. Instead, it's for his playable appearance in Hyrule Warriors. In the past, I made a video where I ranked every single playable character and every unique weapon in that game. That list, as usual, was mostly based on how much fun I have playing as each character, and Ganondorf made it to the S tier. But even then, if you remove my personal opinion aside, Ganondorf is still among the strongest characters in Hyrule Warriors. He's just so good! He comes wielding two great swords, swinging them around with so much strength that it makes you feel every hit. He also combines this with some dark magic spells that cover a wide area, and if you ever feel like it, he can partially transform into Ganon and destroy hundreds of enemies in one fell swoop. And when he has enough magic accumulated, he can unleash a devastating explosion that kills everyone inside. He's so much fun! And you know what the craziest part is? He has another weapon that is just as incredible, the Trident. Not only is this an amazing callback to his incarnation as Ganon, but this weapon is surprisingly fast, making Ganondorf zoom through the field at blinding speed, hitting and stabbing enemies before they can even react, while also summoning thunder magic to add even more mayhem. If I have to choose, I wanna say I prefer the Great Swords just a tiny bit more than the Trident. But even then, you can't go wrong with any of this. Both delivering power, speed, area coverage, and are incredibly destructive. Back in that Hyrule Warriors tier list video, I also mentioned that Ganondorf is so cool to play as in this game because you can tell he really enjoys the chaos he's causing. It's one of those characters that makes you feel evil when you play as him, and that is so much fun. Okay, this one might be a bit too obvious, but I still find it fun nonetheless. Fighting games, especially older ones, they were no strangers to making some of the most ridiculously overpowered final bosses ever made. These guys were specifically designed to be broken and beat you up with no effort at all. They were so strong, you couldn't help but wonder how hard they would break their games if they became playable. Well, as a matter of fact, some of them did, and those are the characters who made it to the list. First of all, we have Onslaught from Marvel vs. Capcom, a boss infamous due to his insane difficulty. This is because of him having a plethora of hard-hitting attacks that cover a wide area. Onslaught is able to summon sentinels to assist him in battle, use more powerful versions of Magneto's attacks, has a laser beam that is stronger than Cyclops' optic blast, he can even teleport, and has super armor to boot. And if that wasn't enough, he has a second form where he covers most of the background, has a very tricky weak spot to hit, and every single attack can hit you multiple times for massive damage. It goes without saying that Onslaught became a nightmare for many players out there. However, if you own the PlayStation or Dreamcast versions of the game, all of this could be yours to use to your liking, and yes, that includes his giant second face. Gil. Look, I adore Street Fighter 3rd Strike, but god, never have I ever been able to defeat Gil! And trust me, there's a good reason for that. How do you feel about fighting a guy that has so much reach, can easily stun you, and can cause a lot of block damage? But wait, that's not all. Gil is capable of summoning a storm of meteors that can easily drain your entire health. He can grow 6 wings and cause a screen nuke that is impossible to evade and impossible to parry. But can it get worse? Yes, it can! Say you actually managed to defeat Gil. Did you know that he's capable of resurrecting himself? So long as he has his super art ready, he can continue to do this to ruin your day. Gil is one of the biggest dickheads in the entire franchise. But hey, if you want, you can also be a dickhead to your friends by playing as Gil. And all you need to do is to beat him as every single character in the console versions of the game. He was also playable in Street Fighter V, but at least there he was toned down to be more in line with the rest of the cast. Nothing compared to how cracked up he is in 3rd Strike. Also, fun fact, did you know that in Street Fighter canon, Akuma killed Gil with a Shun Gokusatsu, only for him to use Resurrection and come back to life after Akuma left? I don't know, I just find that really damn funny. Oh, and speaking of, Cyber Akuma, an enhanced version of the Raging Demon himself, with a moveset that is pretty similar to his original incarnation. Except that this one hits harder, stuns better, and is way faster! Same way as Onslaught and Gil, he is only playable in the home versions of the game. Perfect to make your friends hate you. And finally, we have Rugal, a character so infamously broken that he became an icon of Mexican culture. Okay, I might be exaggerating, but he's still very well known. I'm sure many of you guys are aware of how extremely popular the King of Fighters was in Mexico. You know, the typical story of going to the store to buy tortillas only to spend that money on the arcades. You probably heard that one before. But one thing that most Mexican kids remember is how unfair Rugal was. Like most of the bosses on this list, he hit hard and was very fast. On top of that, he could spam projectiles without any issue. But his most defining feature was his signature move, Genocide Cutter, which could actually take more than half of your health if it connected. He became a detestable face to any person who would come across him. This infamy was such that it will follow him to the games where he became playable. In Latin America specifically, arcade owners will outright forbid you from playing as Rugal, and if you still dare to select him, then you better get ready to be called a plethora of slurs by Mexican kids. Just think about it. Rugal was so well known as a broken character that even politicians have joked about it. That is insane! So what's the lesson here? Actually, I don't know. Just buy the tortillas when your mom asks you to do it, I guess. Oh, but we're not done with Mexico just yet, so let me bring you one of the strongest, craziest and sickening Mexicans out there! The Noise from Pizza Tower, a character that should be well known by any fan of his channel, but in case you don't know anything about him, the Noise is one of the bosses from Pizza Tower and acts as a rival of sorts to Pepino. As a character, he's just a silly bastard who will do whatever it takes to mess up with you and achieve victory. Basically, a Looney Tunes character. And his battle reflects that. He's bouncing and playing all over the place, throwing bombs and even pulling off cheap tricks just to land a hit on you. Going as far as trying to use a Gatling gun just to finish you off. Needless to say, he was a challenging fight and he ended up becoming a beloved character by the Pizza Tower community. However, 1 year later, the game got a massive update aptly named the Noise Update, where the titular character became playable and... Dude, you have no idea how good he is! The Noise is a character whose sole existence makes the game feel like an entirely new experience. At its core, it might not seem too different. You go through the same levels and bosses that you could do with Pepino, but his personality is injected into the game and subverts your expectations. The Noise is like a wild beast that just never stops. He's just as fast and agile as Pepino, but even has a few unique tricks up his sleeve. He can super jump at any given moment, he can bounce off walls, he can drop vertically way faster, redirect himself for the go, and he can even infinite jump! In the past I said that whether you think Pepino or the Noise is the better character, it all comes down to your own preference, but honestly? After playing as the Noise so many times and even getting the you done it final score in the game, I can tell you now, he's easily the superior character of the two. Playing as Pepino is still great, make no mistake, but the Noise has the better mobility, speed, and he can literally break the game in half if you master him. The only difference is that the Noise has such a high skill ceiling that it is more likely for you to screw up while playing. But there's much more than the controls. One of the coolest aspects about the Noise is how his personality reflects through gameplay, using power-ups in different ways, cheating his way through boss battles, and even having his own unique easter eggs. In fact, I'll just put it like this. The Noise as a playable character is so intense that I made an entire video talking about how cool he is. The Noise isn't just a broken character to play as, but his mere existence changes the entirety of Pizza Tower. He is, without a shadow of doubt, the most insane and powerful Mexican out there! Just like me. Whack. Even if you're not a fan of the Kirby franchise, there's no doubt that you have heard about Meta Knight. This enigmatic character started out as a recurring boss battle that eventually evolved into an ally of Kirby and friends. I mean, he still fights you from time to time, but you get what I mean. As a boss, well, Kirby games aren't exactly difficult, but Meta Knight usually ends up being a fairly challenging battle, as he tends to attack you with elegant sword slashes, teleporting around the stage, summoning tornadoes to blow you away, and can even block your attacks if you act too reckless. The coolest part about Meta Knight is that every time he returns as a boss, each game adds more tricks to his arsenal to keep him fresh, and in a way, you can almost say the same about him as a playable character. He's strong, fast, and every single time he returns, he brings something new to the table. What I like so much about Meta Knight is that he's basically a combination of the sword and wing copy abilities, which are already some of my favorite ones. Except, Meta Knight is faster, and his movesets tend to be a little bit more extensive than Kirby's. And in certain games, Meta Knight gains access to special powers that can help him in different ways, such as being able to increase his speed, heal himself, or even do a screen nuke. By all intents and purposes, I don't think Meta Knight is borderline broken as a playable character in Kirby games, but he's still really damn strong and so much fun to play as. But anyway, you're not here to see me talk about Meta Knight in Kirby. What you really wanna see is...
Hey, Meta Knight.
Do you know Candy?
Show my power.
Meta Knight in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. If you know anything about competitive Smash, is that Meta Knight is one of the most broken characters in the series' history, being able to hold the #1 spot of Brawl's tier list for more than 10 years. So busted in fact that he has his own tier, the SS tier. But why? What made Meta Knight so broken to begin with? Well, just to give you the short version, Meta Knight was incredible in almost every aspect of the game. All of his moves are fast and had long range. If you clash with an opponent, Meta Knight will win as his moves had a lot of priority. If you missed a move, that didn't matter since his attacks barely had any end lag, making it extremely difficult to punish him. He has some of the best out of shield options in the game, and you know what the craziest part is? Meta Knight is an absolute menace on land. But some people debate that he's even better in the air, a place where he can easily be for most of the match. Gliding was insanely broken in Brawl, but Meta Knight had much more than that. He had 5 consecutive jumps mid-air and also had the greatest recovery move in the entire game. And if that wasn't enough, his aerial moves were also insane, could combo you from 0 to death, and all of his special moves could work as reliable recoveries too, with Tornado specifically being one of the most infamous ones due to being able to eat enemy shields as if they were nothing. I want you to think about this. Some competitive tournaments have certain rules created with the sole purpose of balancing Meta Knight and keeping him unbanned. such as setting a ledge grab limit or double matches banning 2 members of the same team from using Meta Knight. And even then, Meta Knight is still the most dominant character in the entire game. He simply doesn't have any losing matchups. It is no exaggeration when I tell you that Meta Knight was literally Brawl's meta. Brawl Meta Knight is one of the most infamous characters in Smash history. It really was one of those scenarios that made you think the reason he's so broken is because he was created by Masahiro Sakurai himself. I guess that someone had to intervene and nerf the hell out of him in future games, since he's now a middle tier in Ultimate. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Hey Meta Knight, how's it going?
Very badly.
As per usual, we're gonna finish off this video with the character that inspired this whole idea. Virgil from the Devil May Cry series isn't just one of the greatest final bosses ever created. He's the playable boss character of all time, and every single aspect about him is amazing. Virgil has always stood out for me in many ways. He's one of my favorite antagonists ever created. In every single game he has appeared, he's always the best boss battle. From being Nilo Angelo in the first game, to his 3 boss battles in Devil May Cry 3, and of course his final encounter in 5 being only rivaled by Cavalier Angelo, at least in my opinion. Virgil is the golden example of boss design. He's an incredible rival both grinding-wise and gameplay-wise. As a boss, he's the pinnacle of everything you have learned up to this point. A true test of skill, someone who is just as capable as you are. He has many different weapons, unique combos, and a devil trigger. He's challenging, insanely powerful, and very fun, which is the best way to describe him as a playable character. In Devil May Cry 3, he's good. I wanna say he's on par with Dante. He's not as customizable as his brother, but he still has his own things that set him apart. He has the Yamato sword, which he can use in conjunction with the Force Edge, as well as the Beowulf gauntlets. And instead of using firearms, he summons magical swords that he launches at his opponents. And his unique style, Dark Slayer, lets him reposition himself through teleportation. He may lack some other mobility options compared to Dante, but nonetheless, Virgil is a great character to play as. However, it wasn't until Devil May Cry 4 when he became an absolute broken menace, and this is all thanks to one change: the concentration mechanic. How it works is that you have a gauge with 3 levels in total, and the more you fill it up, the stronger and bigger your attacks will become, while some others gain new properties and abilities. To increase the gauge, the player must attack enemies while also avoiding their attacks as much as possible. You must walk instead of running during combat, and even something as simple as standing still will fill the gauge. However, if you run during combat, miss attacks, or get hurt, your concentration will drop. In other words, players must learn to be patient and be efficient during combat. It's one of the greatest iterations of narrative translated into gameplay. You essentially need to become Virgil. In other words, you have to say, he's just like me. On top of that, Virgil also receives some new tools. He's way more upgradable than in Devil May Cry 3, but he also gains new mechanics to toy with, such as being able to do frame-perfect judgment cuts and even teleport himself with the summoning swords. And the best part is, unlike Nero and Dante or Lady and Trish who share the same campaign, Virgil is on his own the entire adventure. He's just that strong, he doesn't need any help. And his Devil May Cry 5 incarnation did not fall behind either. Not only does he have the returning concentration gauge and all the tools he acquired in Devil May Cry 4, but he also got some reworks. His Devil Trigger now summons a doppelganger that follows up on his attacks. Virgil can still turn into a demon by using his Sin Devil Trigger gauge, and as a new addition, his concentration gauge can be spent to unleash a variety of different finishers depending on the weapon he's using, with one of them being an attack where he stabs himself with the Yamato, temporarily transforms into B, and attacks a wide area with his familiars. Virgil is, in my eyes, without a shadow of doubt, the greatest playable boss in gaming history! It isn't just the fact that his personality translates extremely well into gameplay, but mastering him is a genuine challenge. Yes, you can probably get results by button mashing because Virgil is that strong. But when you actually sink your teeth into the mechanics that make him so unique, it makes you appreciate the depth and complexity of this character. And with great results too! The amount of things that Virgil can do is insane, with the only limit being your skill and imagination. Oh yeah, and did I mention that he's also among the best characters in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3? I don't know, I felt that at least I had to mention that. I love Virgil so much. He's a great antagonist in the story, he's a phenomenal boss battle, an absolute powerhouse while playable, and he even makes dad jokes 3 minutes after finding out Nero is his son. Is there anything this man cannot do right?
It's past your bedtime.
Okay, now you guys know the drill. Which video game bosses are your favorites when they become playable? They don't necessarily have to be broken. I just wanna know video game bosses that become playable and you really like. So yeah, let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, thank you so much for your time. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and you know it, if you want to support the channel, you can do so by liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, and Patreon. Anything will help me so much. Have a wonderful day, and take care! I'll see you next time!